All right, good evening, everybody. It is, according to Verizon, 7:02 on Tuesday, February 17th. I will call to order this meeting of the Planning Commission. If you care to and are able to, please rise to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Abraham,
Present.
Commissioner Robinson,
Present.
Commissioner Chair Hillman,
Present.
Commissioner Normo,
Present.
Co-Chair Scussel, Commissioner and Secretary Clark,
Present.
We did receive
Commissioner
notice.
Hammond.
Speaking of whom, we did receive notice from Commissioner Councilman Hammond that he will not be present today, so I'll take a motion to approve the absence of Commissioner Hammond. The motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, Mr. Hammond's absence is approved. Austin, would you please comment quickly on
Yes.
James?
This morning, Commissioner James Scussel resigned due to a personal matter, so we will be looking for a new commissioner. Tomorrow we'll be posting a flyer requesting applications, so if there's anybody that you know or you think would make a good addition to the commission, please let them know, and they can contact Elisa, our city clerk, or myself, and we can give them an application. It just requires application, a resume, and a letter, cover letter to go with it. So please keep your eyes out, and if there is anybody, put them in our direction.
Yes, and please, those of you in attendance and watching, if you or anybody you might know might be interested in the position, I would encourage them to submit an application to the city as well. But I would also like to take this moment to thank Commissioner Scussel for his time served, and certainly we hope that the personal matter he's working on resolves swiftly and quickly. Is everybody in possession of today's agenda? No? There should be one over here.
Anyone else?
Before I seek a motion to approve today's agenda, I would like to suggest one change. So if somebody could motion with this change, I personally would appreciate it. I would like to add a new number 9 for an additional public comment, specifically on the topic of the master plan update, our housing goals and types discussion. So when motioning to approve the agenda, if somebody could please request that we add an additional public comment section as the new number 9, pushing other matters for discussion to number 10. I would appreciate that. Can I get a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the agenda and add an additional item number 9. Is it 9A, 9B, 9.1?
Just 9.
9 for an additional public comment section. Second.
Approval of the agenda with the addition of section 9, public comment, has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved with that one small change. Has everybody had a chance to review the meeting minutes from our January meeting? Assuming so, could I please get a motion to approve our January meeting minutes?
I motion.
Support.
The motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, our January meeting minutes are approved. Next, number 6, public comment. A quick note to the public. There are several opportunities for the public to comment tonight. We do have a public hearing about our solar and battery system ordinance revisions, so if you have a public comment specific to that, I recommend holding off until that section of the agenda. You can use this opportunity also, but I would suggest holding off on that for now. Also, if you have public comment relating to housing, I would suggest you hold that off until our new agenda item 9. But I can't control what you say at this public comment section, so long as it's pertinent to the agenda. So if we have anybody here for public comment, you have 3 minutes at the podium. Please state your name and city street.
Bruce Cantor, Sunnybrook. I just wanted to make some public comment regarding the agenda item for the sign ordinance. I think Austin did a really good job of doing the agenda item memo, but did want to provide a little bit further context for why that's on the agenda. About 4 or 5 months ago, I brought this up with council to open up the sign ordinance for review. We decided to throw it over the fence to you guys. But the reason why I made that suggestion was for the last 2 years, I've been getting a lot of complaints and been addressed by a lot of the business owners regarding signage, and it really falls into 2 categories. The first category has to do with the construction. So we've had 2 years of massive construction on Southfield Road. Especially the businesses south of 11 Mile have been hit really hard by that. And they wanted to, during the construction, to have somewhat of relief with respect to the temporary sign ordinance, which I believe, Austin, correct me if I'm wrong, you can have 2 14-day
A-frame, temporary signs.
Two temporary signs. And so they wanted to be able to have more during the construction. So they were really asking for 2 things. One, during construction periods, to be able to have more temporary signage, and then also just to be able to have more temporary signage throughout the year. So that was the first area. The second area had to do with just signage in general. You know, the building signs are relatively small, and some properties, mostly the ones south of 11 Mile, tend to be set a little bit further back off the road than the ones further to the north. And so their issue was people are driving by and not seeing their businesses. So what they wanted is some type of sign relief. One of the things that they have suggested to me was being able to have monument signs if the businesses are a certain distance off of the road, so that as people are coming up on their businesses, they can see the monument sign and get a sense of what's in that plaza, as opposed to having to drive by and see the signs that are another 7,500 feet off the road, maybe not that far, but further off the road where they're smaller and they can't see them by the time they drive by. They're past and they don't stop and go to those businesses. So that's a little bit of the context around it. So I just wanted to make you aware of that as you start to look at the sign ordinance and why that was kind of thrown over the fence to you guys. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Austin, do we have any old business or tabled items that I don't know of?
Not tonight.
Okay. Then we should move along to 8A, election of officers. Do you want to kick that off?
Yes, so this is an item that we take on every year at the beginning of the calendar year. We had it on our agenda last month, but we felt that because of attendance, we would hold off. We are missing one commissioner, and there's a current open seat. So, Tim, do you still feel comfortable moving forward?
I think I do.
Okay.
Consider, I should say,
Mhm.
our absent member is a councilman
Very
and
true.
probably should not be fulfilling one of these officer roles anyway. So I'm comfortable moving forward in his absence
Okay.
because I wouldn't suspect him to fill any of these 3 roles.
And there are 3 positions, we chair, vice chair, and secretary. So I think first would ask if anybody would like to volunteer for any of those positions.
Would anybody like to volunteer for chair? Ask the current sitting chair. All right, I will volunteer as chair.
Thank you, Tim.
So in order to select me as chair, we need somebody to move
Make a
to
motion.
elect. So
I move that Tim Hellman be appointed chair. I move to elect Tim Hellman as chair of the Planning Commission for a 1-year term.
A second.
all right. The motion to approve Timothy Hillman as chair of the Planning Commission for a 1-year term has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank God. All right. We would have been mad at each other if you said no. Anyway, I kid. I suppose I'm the Planning Commission chair for another year.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, so we'll move on to vice chair. Would anybody like to volunteer for the role of vice chair?
I'll volunteer.
Okay, we have a volunteer in the form of Commissioner Robinson. Would anybody like to motion to approve Commissioner Robinson as our vice chair?
I motion to approve Commissioner Robinson as vice chair.
Anybody second?
Support.
The motion to elect Commissioner Robinson as vice chair of the Planning Commission for a one-year term has been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Very good. Congrats. All right, finally, the role of secretary, which is currently being fulfilled by Commissioner Clark. Would anybody like to volunteer to be our secretary?
Before I volunteer myself again.
Okay.
All right,
Commissioner Clark's been doing a fantastic job.
Commissioner Clark has
I can't take the
volunteered
credit, that's-
as our secretary. Can I get a motion to elect Commissioner Clark as secretary of the Planning Commission for a one-year term?
I move to elect Commissioner Clark as the Secretary of the Planning Commission for a one-year term.
Support.
The motion to elect Commissioner Clark as secretary of the Planning Commission for a one-year term has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, congratulations, Secretary Clark.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move along to Agenda Item 8B, Site Plan Extension Request 2770 Southfield Road.
Thank you, Chairman. So last April, we, as a body, reviewed site plan for the adaptive reuse of former school located at 27700 Southfield Road. During our April 15th, 2025 meeting, there was a approval of the site plan. According to our zoning ordinance, section 6.1, part D, part II, that if construction has not commenced within 12 months or the construction is not finalized within 12 months, then an extension is required. An applicant must request in writing, and the applicant has. I invite the applicant, if they have any questions or any comments they would like to provide to their requests. The ordinance states, the ordinance further provides that City Council, after recommendation from the Planning Commission, may grant an extension of up to 12 months upon written request from the applicant if it finds that, one, the approved site plan adequately represents current conditions on and surrounding the site, and two, the site plan conforms to current zoning ordinance standards. Based on these standards, the ordinances in our city code has not changed, so the environment is the same as it was when the site plan was approved. And currently, the site plan has not changed. It is the same, and they are just looking for a 12-month extension while they work with the state. They have been doing their due diligence. Since April 2025, they've been working with the state, the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, MISHDA, to get financing to close the gap they have to make the project move forward. The state requested that they provide a market analysis in April of 2025. They complied, they provided it. After that, the state said that they were going to do their own market analysis, and that took 2 months. So they've been doing their due diligence. It hasn't been that they are not moving forward to begin the project or that they are waiting until something else were to occur before they proceed. It is the state that they're waiting on to find if they will be approved for financing through the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. So the timeline, we thought they would have been notified already by February of 2026, but they are still waiting to hear, and they are still providing additional information to the state. So that is why construction is not commenced.
Okay. I
This-
understand.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is their first extension request,
Yes.
and the 12 months, that doesn't mean it's actually going to be a full 12 months. It could be resolved within that 12 months.
It could, yes, they could begin with it within the next 12 months, but there is the other second part to the ordinance where the project needs to be finalize and complete it within 12 months. So they will need to come back again and request additional extension because of the language in our ordinance.
Is there any reason why we don't amend the request to do that extension now? Or is that feasible? I'm saying,
Oh,
you're saying they're gonna come back
Yes.
again.
It's just because the project will take a couple of years to complete. So
Gotcha.
with the 12-month expiration, they would need to come back.
So just to clarify, they have 12 months from the date the site plan is approved to commence construction, and then they actually have 12 months from the date of commencement to finish the construction. What Austin's saying is it's anticipated that this project, given the size of it, will take more than a year to complete, so that request to extend the completion time frame would come when they're in the construction phase. This is just the commencement there. Because this was approved in April of last year, and the way the meeting schedules fall, it needs a recommendation from this body and an approval from council, so that's why it's on tonight's agenda as opposed to next month, because timing-wise, it wouldn't work prior to the expiration of the approved site plan.
Yeah, so the ordinance requires that the recommendation comes from Planning Commission to City Council, and the City Council makes the final vote.
Gotcha.
Austin, thank you for that summary, but I know, and you mentioned that there is a representative from the developer here.
Yes.
So I don't mean to put him on the spot, but Jordan, if you'd like to provide additional information or clarity to Austin's summary, please feel free.
Hi, everyone. Jordan Sherman, Vice President at the Sternow Company. So, yeah, I mean, Austin summarized it perfectly. I brought some slides. I know a couple members on the commission weren't here in April when it was approved, just to kind of jog everyone's memory for what we showed in the past, which was a really long presentation, which I didn't necessarily need to go through, but I'm happy to talk about it in the future.
Jordan, you're welcome to have
Sure.
a mouse if you'd like.
But the net is that we always kind of thought we were going to be in this position because of the language of the ordinance, to no fault of the city. We have, basically the way it works is the time, even if from the time the site plan was approved, if our financing was approved, and even if we started construction, to the point that the city attorney made, because the size of this project, it's going to take probably 18 to 24 months to build. So we were going to anticipating coming for site plan extension no matter what. One thing that elongated the process was our dealings with the state. So I was on with them today. They anticipate us getting approved for this special loan that we can get from the state that they make available for these types of housing projects in Q2. We're going to be the first project of this, what's called the Housing Accelerator Fund in the entire state, in order to get this special low-interest construction loan, which is going to help us build the project and keep it on AMI. But the downside of that is that we're the guinea pig of the state. We're the first to go through it. There's all these different layers of approvals, and every time it goes to their loan committee and comes back, similar to how all politics and government bodies work, you get on the next agenda, and before you know it, 2 or 3 months have passed. It's not something that you can, like in a normal private business, just get an answer from somebody the next day. So it's all going according to plan. It's all in a good place. We think we're going to get it. We're getting great feedback from the state. But with the site plan, the 12-month period ending in April, we're here to get the extension. So the hope is that we get the loan, it gets extended, we do commencement. It could be before that 12-month period, and then we would probably have to apply for another extension 12 months after we break ground on construction to finish it off, basically, with an 18-month period. And we've been in contact with the building department and the engineering department and already started the process of getting to know how much our permit fees are going to cost and going through engineering. And if it would be helpful for some of the newer planning commissioners or even the ones that were here in April, I brought some slides and some images if you'd like to see it again.
Would anyone care to see it? let's take a look quickly, if you don't mind. We've
Sure.
got a stacked agenda tonight.
Sure.
But
I'll-
let's take a look quickly to catch everybody up to speed.
I'll fastball.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was the criteria that the planning commission reviewed in April. The 4 criteria that were needed for approval. The first is the project involves the rehabilitation of a historic structure, which is the Annie Lathrup School. This is the current condition of the school. These are a rendering of what it's going to look like. We worked really closely with the historic district last year on the brick and on the size and look and feel and what we're calling the notch here to expose the school and the chimneys. This is the view from Southfield Road. This is the current state of the interior hallway. This is what we're planning on rebuilding it into. So you'll see a common hallway, refurbishing the basketball court into a sport court and also a theater and stage. We'll have co-working that's going to be available for residents of the city to come in and have co-working spaces. That's where you'll see like cafes. This is the second level above the basketball court. Well, there'll be Wi-Fi and coffee and places for people to work who are residents of the building, and then for residents of the community, spaces to rent out and have different private meetings. This is the state of the current gymnasium. This is what we're going to build it back into. We've done a lot of work with historic on the windows themselves and keeping those and refurbishing those to the way they were when it was first built in 1927. Another view of the inside. We're calling it like a clubhouse. There'll be a gym in one of the classrooms now, and there's a so this is like one of the classrooms that we put into a gym. This is a fireplace. Oh, that's the co-working. Sorry, so that's the co-working area, turning the classrooms into co-working. This is a historic fireplace. We saw this from an old news article. This is the current state of the classroom, and we are going to refurbish that with the Puavic tile that was there from when it was originally built. And the hope is that the HTC committee can have meetings there, different schools can come in there and kind of experience the history of Lathrup Village. So we're trying to keep the school. There'll be no apartments in the school. The apartments are going to be on the wings of the school, but the school will be refurbished and be able to be reused, is the idea. Some programs like the Ivy in Berkeley actually use the school to build in apartments. We're doing something different. The state of Michigan suggested we put a swimming pool in the school to get people more interested in the rents. We denied that request. We need green space. This is the idea. There will be 40,000 square feet of green space that's active and on site here. This piece of land is a buffer zone. This is not our property. It's owned by the state, but we have committed as part of the pilot program to enhance it and refurbish it and make it nice for the entire community. This is a view from the back end of the city property on the track of Annie Lathrup Park. And this is what it's going to look like. So we're going to put in additional greenery to block. There's a whole bunch of trees on this side for residents that are already blocked, but we're going to add in a second layer as well to add in green space buffer zone. This will be the tenant entrance. So this will be from the parking lot, what we call the front of the building, because this is where tenants are going to walk in. You'll see where they'll park, they'll walk through there. A view of the apartments alongside the school, walking into the building, green space, hangout area. There'll be barbecues, tenant lounges. This is a view from inside the school, what it'll look like with the apartments. Just more green space, dog park. This was on Southfield Road, the greenery. We've worked with all the different ordinances to get this up to code. None of the code or the ordinance have changed since we've built these images out. An overview of the site plan and the parking, which we worked through with City Council. And then housing, there was a thing about the need for housing. I have a lot of slides on that. I can go into that in detail in another meeting. And then being aligned with the master plan, which I know is being updated, but this plan is in line. In fact, this is an image from the master plan, which matches ours. There's like 5 criteria for the master plan, which also line up with the school itself. And then for tonight, which Austin already read out, but the 2 main criteria were that the plan adequately represents current conditions surrounding the site and that it conforms to the current zoning standards, which it also does. This is all in Austin's presentation, but I put this in there that we're consistent with the current zoning. We've had no substantial changes, and the proposed development encourages reinvestment in rehabilitating historic structures. And the last slide I have on here is just that the holdup is NISTA and how long it's taking with the financing, but we have their commitment to move forward, hopefully in Q2, and we're on the agenda to be the first one to pass.
Thank you for that quick summary. I believe it was only Commissioner Nordmo and I who were present at the time of this site plan working its way through. So I would assume that the other commissioners up here found that valuable to see a kind of an update or a up to speed of it all. I do want to remind the commission that this is not an opportunity to relitigate. This is an approved site plan. The developer is only here asking for an extension of an already approved site plan. My only contributions to the discussion as of right now would be, I know you're asking for an extension of the full 12 months, which is the maximum allowed extension, correct? But it sounds like the state of Michigan has offered you a rough estimate that this financing approval should be in your hands by the end of Q2. Assuming it happens that way, how quickly should this community expect to see shovels in the ground? Is that something that can start happening right away, or there's still a period of time between getting that and the commencement of construction?
Yeah, I don't want to like throw them under the bus, but they've continuously missed deadlines. So I don't want to like super promise for them because I don't work for the state. But the hope would be once we get the financing, we would go straight with the building and engineering department. What did they quote us at? About 2 months for
Yes,
review?
For trades, yes.
So I would say, we'd have to finalize our construction drawings, then go through with the trades. So conservatively 4 months from approval of the finances to work through with the city, the engineering department. I'm sure they're gonna have comments. We're gonna go back and forth and go through that standard process. What did Steve say? Get ready for a lot of inspections.
Yes.
So
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lot
we're
of
gonna be
inspections.
going through all that. So conservatively 2 + 4.
But that is a positive of the city. The city will get permit fees from all of those inspections.
And that also depends on the time of year.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Correct. We definitely want to get started before winter, especially with how cold last month was.
Any questions or discussion? One more thing briefly. Since April, at the end of every planning commission meeting, Austin provides us a site update of all of the various site plans that were approved but not yet seen through completion. And since April, the update on this project has always been some version of they're still ironing out the financing of it all. In my side, the only downside to a 12-month extension is it may be another year before the community receives an update beyond they're still ironing out the financing. So is there any cause for a shorter extension, if only for the sake of getting an update more quickly than 12 months from now, assuming that it doesn't happen the way the state is promising it will happen? Or are we comfortable with a full 12-month extension?
I just approve it for 12 months and have them give their attention to speeding it along.
Sure.
I would agree.
Okay. I would agree. I'll caveat that, Jordan, by saying that perhaps if 6 months into this, there isn't a update on the financing other than they've promised it at the end of Q3, for example, maybe in good faith you could come back to just provide another kind of informal update in the interim.
I'm happy to come by anytime. July, we could set a date. I get it. I mean, for people who don't necessarily work in development, it can feel like, I remember before I worked in this career, it was like 1 year seemed like the longest time ever. And then you come into something like this, and 1 year it's actually really short.
Yeah.
Because we can't even do the construction of this within a year. So 1 year for some can sound really long, and 1 year for some can feel really short. So I appreciate you guys being flexible with us on this. And trust me, nobody wants it more than we do. And I feel bad even saying, like pinning it on the state, but it's the truth. And it's just, it's state of Michigan. They got a lot of people vying for these types of bonds and these types of loans. And we're at the top of their list, which I feel really fortunate about.
Yeah. We've all renewed a driver's license. We know on a small, we know on the small scale what it's like to deal with a governmental entity, including one like ours, so I understand. I also want to remind the commission that we are not approving this extension. We are simply recommending to council to grant this extension. So when making the motion, it should be a motion to recommend to city council for this extension. Austin was kind in giving us a suggested motion at the end of page 10 of our agenda packet. So feel free to utilize that language. It's a little bit lengthy to just come up with on your own, but I would like to seek a motion if there's no further discussion or questions.
I'll make the motion. I move to recommend that city council grant the applicant a 12-month extension of the site plan approved on April 15, 2025, as the approved plan continues to represent current site conditions and remains consistent with the zoning ordinance.
Support.
The motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, we've got your recommendation to council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Austin. Moving along to agenda item 8C, site plan review 28919 Southfield Road.
Yes, I'd like to thank you all for your attention tonight. I know it's been a long meeting, and we have more to go through, but this is kind of it's a very specific matter with this site plan. So we'll be asking for site plan, the applicant is asking for site plan approval contingent on them receiving a ZBA request next city council meeting, which is on Monday. But to give a little background, the unit located at 28919 Southfield Road, applicant is seeking a change of use for from retail to restaurant for a cafe. They're going to be serving pastries and coffee. Speaking with the applicant, about 80% of their business at their current cafe in Hamtramck is takeout. So you can see on the map here, this plaza has 5 rental units. This part right here is occupied by Papa's Pizza. It's actually on a separate parcel. The plaza is all one building. It's all owned by the same property owner, but this is on its own parcel. The next unit is vacant. The most recent use was retail, and while completing my site plan review, I discovered that this unit's been vacant for over a decade, and the applicant, the property owner, has had trouble leasing it out. And we think one of the reasons is due to how stringent our parking ordinance is. And that's what we're about to get into, is that the proposed cafe is the third unit, which is going to have some small dine-in, but it's going to be mostly takeout for the coffee and the pastries. And the next is retail, the fourth unit, which is Vintage Village, which people come in, they park in the county right-of-way, buy what they need, and then go. The final unit is professional office. It is a physical therapy. It's a smaller unit when it comes to physical therapy, but it is the unit that probably has the most parking demand. Now, to go over the parking, the unit is located in our commercial vehicular district. I'm trying to look for the parking map. Here it is. So there are 4 on-site parking spots for the entire plaza. And they are behind Papa's Pizza. There are 18 in the county right-of-way, and there are 28 spaces in the city-owned parking lot to the south of the building. As you can see, the site is built out. There is no additional location for on-site parking. The building actually ends right here, the lot ends here. That is a public alleyway in the back. It goes through to back to Southfield Road. The applicant needs to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals on Monday and ask for a variance due to the lack of parking on site. And this is something we see as a detriment to the property owner. They've been trying to lease these units out and having a very difficult time. And this is a matter that needs to be reviewed. And currently with the takeout, I think of this similar to, it may have only been Dennis and Tim when we looked at Mara Greens and the timing of customers when they're actually on site and actually the length of time they're on site. So Papa's is completely takeout. There's no dine-in. The next unit is vacant, and the most recent use was retail. The proposed cafe is going to be primarily takeout. Vintage Village is primarily takeout, where people just come in and go. And the final, I think, is probably the use that requires the most, is the professional offices for physical therapy. But I've monitored this lot, and it is very rarely full. And it is a big request to ask for nearly 100% variance for a parking standard. But I did reach out to the property owner. I'm not sure if I have it in my report, but there's a property directly to the east across Southfield Road. It is where Olga's and also Jersey Mike's is, and it has a very large parking lot. Let me see if I can pull it up on here. And I reached out to the property owner trying to inquire if there could be a shared parking agreement, because the ordinance allows a applicant to get into a shared parking agreement with a property owner within 500 feet of the subject site. So it made the most sense here, but I ran the numbers, and nearly all of the parking spots, due to the size of Olga's and Jersey Mike's, are required from this big parking lot, which is the gateway to the entrance of our city. They see, yes.
Just really quickly, but the lamp,
Oh, yes, over
the
here.
lamp store,
Yep.
they've got a considerable amount of parking over there.
And you're correct. And they need it because of how high our parking standards are. And we tried to engage with the property owner, and we are unsuccessful. So steps were made to try to find an alternative to a variance. But based right now, the applicant, we can look at the chart for the parking. So they need 22 parking spots. There are only 4 on site, and they're used by the employees to free up the parking in the county right-of-way, and as well as the city-owned lot. Should also be noted that because the parking is in the county right-of-way, it cannot be counted towards any of the parking for that property. So total, the property needs 73 parking spaces. We do have the business owner and the property owner here tonight. If you have any questions for them, they are here to discuss. I've had lengthy conversations with the property owner regarding this matter and his difficulty in leasing these properties out. That because of the parking standard, it's almost impossible to fulfill what is required in the ordinance to get site plan approval. So that is why we're going to go to City Council, who acts as our zoning board of appeals, on Monday and ask for a variance. I believe that based on the types of uses and the type of businesses, because of their primarily takeout or you're on site very briefly for retail, that there's a sufficient parking. And we're actually going to go into it briefly next, the next item regarding our capital improvement plan. One of the items is for the DDA to put a wayfinding sign for that parking lot. People don't recognize that as public parking. It is available. People can use it. Really, the only public parking in the city is here around our municipal building and that lot right there that is south of the subject site. So we're coming to you tonight to ask for the change of use. So from retail to restaurant, I don't see that there will be a significant detriment to that part of the city if they were to be approved contingent on the applicant receiving a variance to the parking standard from the ZBA. I believe they'd be a great addition to the city, and I also see that the property owner is in a very difficult position where they have to pay taxes, but because of the standards, they're not able to actually rent out their units.
Can you speak quickly to your other concern, I don't know if concern is the right word, about delivery space?
Yes, that is one item that I did find that would be another sticking point, is that our ordinance requires a designated delivery location. We discussed that recently with Middle East, them having a delivery spot. Now, if the business owner or product, Dane, you mind just coming up for a second?
What do you?
About the deliveries right now?
You want me to show you where it's going?
Yeah,
So the delivery currently, well,
yeah, here you go.
back of the screen, I'll show you.
Okay.
Right there. So delivery is currently in your alley, right here. That's where the trucks are able, if they're like Cisco Foods, for instance, or like a semi-load, which barely anybody comes through with a semi if it's just one food user, but everything goes through here. And there's no exit out of this alley, so there's no car traffic. Everything comes through the city parking lot and right to here, and that's your delivery access. And which, they're mainly takeout business, you know, just like how Papa's is. Their takeout area is probably the size of this, you know, in and out.
Now, how long do deliveries usually, are they on site for?
For restaurant sizes like that, probably maximum 15 minutes. The main time they take is for the business owner to cut them a check or
Okay.
sign a received order and done.
And how often do deliveries occur?
Once a week.
Once a
if-
week.
If that. When you're a food user, your inventory is low,
Mhm.
so you can keep inventory for 2 weeks because everything's dated. So they can order for 2 weeks at a time or 1 week, you know? And usually deliveries happen on a slow day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It doesn't take up too much traffic in that area.
How have you seen the parking in the county right away in the city parking lot?
I mean, I go there a lot, you know, so I always have a parking spot. I mean, anybody that comes in there, there's always parking. We've been dealing with this parking for 30 years. There's really nothing you can change or do or add unless we cut our building and move back, which even that wouldn't make sense because it mess up the master plan, you know. So I think we have enough space with the county parking and the city parking on the side. With all that, you know, I think that's pretty good flow for in and out traffic.
And how often do you get inquiries about the vacant unit?
A lot,
Do you?
a lot.
But you haven't had anybody actually go through with it?
You know, the problem is they get denied with, you know, and not enough parking, you know, and if they want to do sit-down, we don't allow sit-down because it affects everybody else, it ties up parking, ties up everybody. So we prefer more takeout. That's why we have Papas like that, that's why we want to do the Dairy Ferry, and I think there'll be a good plus to the community. you know.
In the subject address in the property is located in the commercial vehicular district, which is tailored more towards vehicular type businesses, which is carry out is one of those type of businesses.
Yeah, carry out is one of those businesses. He's carry out mainly, you know, and who's really going into retail anymore? It's all DoorDash, Uber Eats. Really, that's all it is. You know, you get more of those people than you'll get customers nowadays. I think it's a good plus for the community. Nice local owned. You know, it's not a big franchise. Everything's gonna be homemade there. There's seating spaces probably for a customer waiting for coffee and cheesecake or something. They're gonna have 2 seats to sit and wait for their order and leave. It's not like a 4-story Starbucks coffee shop, sit-down study center, you know, not enough space for that, but.
Also, the parking ordinance is written in a way that Jagged Fork and the cafe are treated as the same parking usage.
Yeah.
So you go to Jagged Fork, that parking's used because people are coming there, sitting down, taking their time, enjoying themselves, where a cafe of this such is not like that, where people are gonna come, order, get what they need, or it's gonna be an Uber Eats driver or a DoorDash driver who's coming, picking up an order, and then leaving. So we don't see from a parking issue to be a major detriment to this area of the city. We don't see it resulting in people parking in areas that are not designated for parking. It is simply permitting a change of use in allowing the zoning board of appeals to make the decision of granting a variance for parking.
I'm just curious about, is there a ratio for handicap parking? Is it compared to
Yes.
total? And
Yep.
what is that, and is there an impact in this
We
process?
ran the numbers, and they are required, based on the parking, to have 2. So I think it's 1 for every 22 parking spaces, I believe. And they do have 2 of them. There's one located here in the city parking lot, and there's another one right in front here.
And they both have wheelchair accessible points on both ends.
And people also use the gas station next door as overflow.
Well, that's what it is too, you know,
Yeah.
it's like people make it a 2-for-1, you know, you stop, that's a parking spot, you get what you need, and you're out.
Absolutely.
Everybody's used to Southfield Road to be like a convenience of quick in and out. I think it'd be more dangerous for customers and people. We already don't want people to jaywalk, and you're gonna have to go across the street, even if it's an employee for an 8-hour shift. For their 1-hour break, it could cause a big accident to shut down Southfield Road, you know? I think, you know, it's good enough parking where we have.
This is a very unique situation. This isn't typical, and the reason the zoning board of appeals exists is for individuals who, their property doesn't conform to the zoning ordinance, and they need relief, and they're being, they're not able to take full advantage of their property as compared to other property owners due to the zoning ordinance. And the zoning ordinance is restrictive right now to this property owner and the business owner who's looking to open up a cafe at this location. So, yeah, I'd recommend that the change of use, that's really not a big change to go from retail to cafe that is takeout. That's not really going to increase the parking demand in this area of the city as much as other use types.
So what is the action item?
Well, the app,
I have a question
please.
before we go into our action item. Make sure I have my mic on. Okay. I guess this is more for, I guess for you and the business owner. Is there a particular day or times in which it would be busy to where parking would be a concern, just considering the fact that it is more of a local business? I said it was also in Hamtramck, and they might already have like a customer base, or Lathrup Village might really love this place so much that there's a time where, I mean, I don't know, Sunday mornings where it's filled up, and then there might be abundance of people ordering and waiting, and the parking could potentially be an issue. So how does
You're
that
asking
play
what
into it?
days?
Yeah, are there
Wanna come on up?
specific like hot point times and dates?
Yeah, go.
Can I make a point?
Yes.
If you're speaking about Sunday morning, typically Vintage Village doesn't open until a little bit later. So people that would be coming in to get coffee and maybe a donut or a treat, they'll be in there between, you know, the 8 a.m. and noon hour. And I think Vintage starts opening about 10, 11, at 11.
Okay.
So you only
I
got
mean,
about
just
an
as
hour
example,
overlap.
I didn't know if there was any other days or times.
That probably would be one of the busy days, I think, is a Sunday, and it's a good advantage for us, speaking freely, that she says 11 o'clock. Everything around us in that area on Sunday is closed. The cash advance is closed. The kebab is rarely open. The clothing store, I think they don't open on Sunday. So like, we have an advantage of more parking, you know? But I think Sunday would be like your busiest, like if you're talking a high volume, like density there, it would probably be Sunday.
So, I own actually the cafe, it's in Hamtramck. We've been operating 2.5 years. It's located off Main Street with no parking. It's actually street parking. Hamtramck had, on Joseph Campo, it was where the state brought, I don't know if it was a contract, I didn't look into it, but we used to have where you used to pay with coin for minutes in Hamtramck. And actually, for Joseph Campo, during the 4 years, the contract they had, we had so much, like our business, the businesses in Hamtramck, on Joseph Campo, when that happened, so many businesses closed down. And Joseph Campo became, I don't know if you guys ever been to Hamtramck, it was very, very busy. during those 4 years, it drove like every single business down and everything. And I just got approved, I believe, last year to remove those, and then now it's picking back up. With your asking about when is our busiest hour, the only time that I see the Hamtramck busy hour is Friday nights and Saturday nights, because we are a dessert shop. It is labeled Ms. Coffee, but we will not be opening up until late in the well, actually early morning, which is like 10, 11 a.m. And that's how I have Hamtramck operating. We are open till 10, actually midnight on summer days, and then in the winter, we actually close at 11. With Hamtramck, being on like street parking, I don't have no issue of parking, but that is Hamtramck. You know, I'm not too familiar with Lathrups. I can't say that much about how parking is in that area and everything.
Yeah,
it is a big difference.
Hamtramck has, they don't have any parking requirements for their businesses in their commercial district. And what we was referring to was that they had a contract with a parking meter company for a period of time. Other communities have had issues as well. And just like other communities, Hamtramck's beginning to remove these parking meters.
Are you Mr. Mohammed?
I am Mr. Mohammed.
Well, first, thank you for considering Lathrup Village to put a second location for your business. I'm sorry, did someone whisper something to me? Okay. Thank you for considering Lathrup Village as a second home to your business. I put some research into your existing location before tonight's meeting, and it looks like you have many, many favorable Google reviews, et cetera. So
Thank you.
I'm sure plenty of us would enjoy having closer proximity to treats like yours. For our purposes, it sounds like there are 3 hurdles to get over, however tall or short they are. 1, a change of use. 2, this delivery vehicle quandary. And 3rd, parking, which in my opinion is a matter that will be ultimately resolved by City Council during their Zoning Board of Appeals session. And so I'm not sure that our opinion matters so much on this specific instance of parking. Would you agree with my
I
summary
would
of that?
agree, Chairman.
Does anybody have further questions or clarifications about the parking specifically? Considering that Zoning Board of Appeals will take that up. What about the change of use or the delivery vehicle components?
15 minutes.
Okay. It doesn't sound like we have many concerns, and that Zoning Board of Appeals will be more than capable of taking up this parking variance request. So the applicant is seeking site plan approval contingent upon approval of the requested parking variance. So hearing no other discussion, if somebody would like to make that motion, I would appreciate it.
I will if you will put the words in my mouth.
How about I put them on the screen for you to read? By the way, this is the hard part of being a commissioner, is knowing how to make the motion.
everything.
Yes. This section.
By the way, the delivery service, just to let you guys know, Mohammed here does everything by himself, so they don't order like big box stores like Papa's, so they're not gonna have no semi-truck from dairy places to deliver. He actually physically buys everything and brings it in his own car to the place, or if there's something custom or special, it'll be one small delivery. you
Sure.
know.
And it is high volume on DoorDash and Uber Eats, and
Sure.
that's the only 5 seconds, not even 5 minutes in there already.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank
Like-
you.
Oh, I don't see the language.
Should move for site plan approval contingent upon the approval of the
Okay.
requested parking variance.
I move site plan approval contingent upon approval of the requested parking variance.
Support.
The motion has,
Robinson.
Robinson, the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good luck at the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
guys.
Thank you.
Moving along to agenda item 8D, 2026 Capital Improvement Plan.
Thank you, Chairman. Every year, we are required by state law to update our capital improvement plan. We do it for a 6-year period. Capital improvement plan serves as an implementation tool of the master plan. Planning Commission's role is to review the document to ensure consistency with the master plan and to make a recommendation to City Council regarding adoption. Approval of the capital improvement plan does not authorize expenditures, but establishes a framework for future capital planning. So we received it late on Friday, so you've all not had a great deal of time to review it. So please take a look at it over the next month while we prepare for our March meeting. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate in emailing City Administrator Mike Green or myself. Mike and also Chief Zhang also has items in here. He can also provide feedback if you have it, so please don't hesitate reaching out to myself or Mike. We can get any questions you have answered, and then during our March meeting, we can discuss those questions here in council chambers, and then we can make a decision then to vote on recommending this version of the capital improvement plan to City Council.
So in a nutshell, between now and our next meeting, if everyone could take the time to review the capital improvement plan as it's included in this agenda packet, it'll be a point of discussion at our next meeting. We'll hear from vested interested parties like the chief of police, et cetera, and we'll make a motion to recommend it or not to council.
So, like, I have questions tonight. Should I send them to Austin
You can send them to myself or to Mike Green.
or to Mike Green?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, would you be able to send an email reminder about reviewing it before our next?
Oh, yeah, yep, I can.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Any other discussion or questions on this agenda item?
There's nothing on the calendar that they're trying to get reviewed and or moved.
As I
quickly.
understand, council intends to make a decision on this contingent on our recommendation at their, not the upcoming council meeting, which is Monday, but next month's council meeting, which will occur after our meeting.
Okay.
So,
All right.
That'll be, so, quick amendment to that. Their council meeting will be before yours.
oh,
It's only after yours this week. It usually ends up being the day before planning
that's
commission, but because of the holiday yesterday, we never met. So that's why this is one of the rare instances where the meeting for council is after planning commission. Next month, you'll make the decision, and then it'll go to the April city council meeting.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I knew that. I keep thinking we're in March, but we're still in February. The weather has thrown me. Got it. Okay, so our deadline for them is not until their April meeting, so
Okay.
we should be good.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussions? All right, moving along. 8F, public hearing for the solar and battery system ordinance
Oh,
revisions.
there was one more item for that.
Oh, I am so sorry.
Yes,
I
it's
skipped
sign
8E.
ordinance.
Agenda item 8E, potential revisions to sign ordinance. We heard a little bit from Mayor Cantor earlier, but Austin, if you have anything prepared for this?
Yes, Mayor Cantor did a great job summarizing the discussions he has had and I've had, and him and I both have had conversations with business owners regarding additional sign types, additional signage size, as well as permitting monument signs back. They were previously permitted, but then the city put it wasn't a ban. It was-
No, monument signs are still permitted in the MX and commercial vehicular districts, as well as the office district. But the big issue that we run into is the setback requirement.
Yes.
There's a 10-foot setback from the property line, which, as we experienced with the site plan request for this evening, most of that is actually county right-of-way, so.
The
where they
first
wanna-
30 feet.
Yeah,
is
where they
county
want to
road.
put the monument signs generally is not their property, so that's the issue.
Yeah.
I don't see, I mean, my 2 cents on this, and Jill's here as well, I'm sure she'd be happy to weigh in, but I don't see how we could ever, I mean, we can't permit signage in the county right away, so short of reducing our setback requirement to 0 feet, I mean, that's something we could do, but that's still, and for the most of these commercial properties would put a monument sign somewhere in the middle of their parking lot. so.
Attorney Baker nailed it right there, that there was just a property owner and business owner who wanted to put a monument sign in, and the only place would have been in the middle of the parking lot on a tiny little peninsula. And it would have been very difficult without it being struck by vehicles in the parking lot while going in and out of lanes. Another sign type are feather signs. They're the ones that blow in the wind. That one is requested on a regular basis to be permitted on a daily basis. Like Mayor Cantor said before, that there are temporary signs, our A-frame sandwich signs, that you can have for 2 limited periods throughout the year for a total number, but business owners are asking for that to be permanent, to have, come in the morning, put their feather sign out in front along Southfield Road, and then pulled in at night. So what we're asking is for you to take a look at the sign ordinance as we go over, especially as we're going through the master plan, and take a look and see what you believe. And our ordinance is also written by, that it's 1 sign per business. And it was written at a time when our buildings were only used in smaller tenant units, where recently a property owner bought and merged all of the units together, and requiring them to go to the zoning board of appeals to resolve their signage. So please take a look at it and this will probably not be a discussion we resolve at our next meeting. It'll be an ongoing conversation. But City Council is looking for guidance on where you believe the best attention would be served on providing businesses more signage types, as well as what balances with both the master plan and aesthetics for the city.
Would it be reasonable to ask of Giffords Webster or the city or whomever to make recommendations based on the feedback the city's received about this?
We could do something, we could, yeah.
That might, considering that this body is not the body receiving these inbound inquiries and requests, I don't know that we're capable of properly quantifying what's most important to change. So perhaps if the city could work with our team at Giffords Webster to point out certain parts of the ordinance that might require revision, that would be most helpful.
Okay. We'll definitely work with them to bring a report.
I do have a few general questions. Let me say first, I'm pretty sure most people are here to get to agenda item 8G, so I promise I want to rush to get to 8G. If you want a monument sign where a monument sign is not permitted by the ordinance, isn't an alternative to seeking to change the entire ordinance to simply take this to the zoning board of appeals? Couldn't your individual case be solved that way?
Yeah, but again, the limiting factor is not necessarily the allowance of, or the ordinance as it relates to monument signs. It's the fact that almost all of these commercial properties
Is on county
are
properties.
utilizing some component of the county right away for parking or frontage or, so it, we can't allow them to put signs in the county's right away. They have to be on their property. So that's, the limitations and what relief the ZBA can grant is, is limited, so.
Sure. My second thought, and this is my final thought on the matter, at least for tonight, is as it relates to these temporary signs, especially if they're being requested in light of the traffic that's been happening along Southfield Road, the service drive, and the freeway, is another potential resolve to this, which doesn't require a change of ordinance, be something like a moratorium on code enforcement of the matter.
There was a moratorium put into effect last summer, I believe it was from July and August, to allow temporary feather signs for any specific district of the city who the businesses were suffering from road construction for a number of years. And so City Council did provide relief in that approach to business owners.
So I'd also like to see, in addition to recommendations for which part of the ordinances might be tweaked to allow for more of these requests, options beyond changing the ordinances themselves. Like, are some of these things better served by moratoriums on code enforcement? Are some of these things better served by submissions to the zoning boards of appeals, et cetera? So I'd like to kind of consider all approaches to it.
I would, my own overriding concern is that Southfield Road is a jumble. there's no consistent vision of feel for Southfield Road as a place. We have blacktop parking going within like 3 or 4 feet of the curb, so to speak. And then another place we have a 30-foot berm with a tree here, a tree here, a tree there, and nice landscaping behind on the other side of the sidewalk. And then the next block, it's nothing. We need to get that straightened out. We need to have one vision that adds class and dignity in an integrated way to the whole strip. And the signage needs to fit in with that. I don't want it looking like a used car lot or flea market with temporary the balloon that jumps all over or any of that stuff. I don't think that's the direction we want to go. If businesses are so desperate for that, then maybe they're not in the right place. Or we haven't made this an attractive enough environment for the businesses that we need. So the monument signs do attract me a little bit if they could be dignified and maybe move closer to the sidewalk.
Okay.
But certainly, of course, not on the other side of the sidewalk where it's not even the city land.
It's not an option, yeah.
But it would be nice if we would have the master plan for how the strip looks,
Mhm.
and then for the signage to fit in with that in a dignified way. And I get that the businesses are set back a lot, and you have to go like this while you're driving, if you're in the flow of traffic, 50 miles an hour, and it's dangerous.
It is.
So we need the sign, we need something out in front, but
I think
classy.
the safety is a really good point. There was a variance request to expand a monument sign that was existing, and it wasn't approved because it was right next to the driveway. And there was concern that if it was to be increased, you wouldn't be able to see any pedestrian traffic that was coming through. And you're absolutely correct, Commissioner Normo, that this balance is between helping the businesses succeed while also balancing aesthetics and what the vision of the master plan is, and also the village center. So I completely agree that it's a difficult balance, but you know, let's over the next few months have this conversation, and we'll keep it on as old business, and we'll ask Giffords, and we'll work with Giffords as city staff to put a report together, some potential examples or potential options of where in the sign ordinance our attention would be best served.
Would I be able to add on to what Commissioner Norman said? I agree, we have to come up with an aesthetic that we want to go with, and I think also keeping in mind the construction of the school and the apartments and what that will do for the city and what that will look like, being a big amount of space being taken up on Southfield Road, and just what that would do for the businesses and all the different things in the zoning in that area. I think once we have a cohesive idea on aesthetic solutions will, I think, naturally arise, because we'll know that feather signs, I have to just say this, like, is just not the look of Lathrup Village, you know? So finding what the look of Lathrup Village is and aligning that with our master plan will ultimately, I think, help with whatever solutions we come up with. And then just also exploring other potential solutions that will give us the look that aligns as well, yeah.
No, I think those are great points.
I think you said it best, Commissioner Normo. I was thinking it, and it came right out of your mouth. The used parking lot, the used car lot, because that's all I can think of when
Flea market was the other phrase I was.
when I think of all the flag signs, and it's okay in a temporary state, but on a permanent basis, that's something we need to really consider, so, yeah.
It sounds like the consensus is we want our sign ordinance to be part of a greater vision and not just a response to individual inquiries. So let's consider the individual inquiries and consider adjustments to the ordinance, but make sure that we're doing it meaningfully as part of a broader plan.
No, I think, I absolutely agree. And one of the reasons this item came up is because people are continually being referred to the zoning board of appeals. And when items keep coming up on a regular basis that go to the ZBA, it must be addressed. And so either it's with any type of analysis, a cost-benefit analysis, doing nothing is always an option. So
Yeah.
maybe the sign ordinance is the way it is, and right now it's our best balance. But let's take a look at it and try to see if there is something that can be added or adjusted or stay as is. And we'll make a recommendation to council.
Okay.
Okay. This is very much an aside, but there's a Burger King at 15 and Telegraph. It's opposite the plaza where the Trader Joe's is. It's on the northeast corner. It doesn't look like a Burger King. The Bloomfield ordinances make sure that their Burger Kings look nicer than the
Oh,
typical Burger King. And I want to make sure that Lathrup Village signage looks nicer than any old sign you want to throw.
I
So
agree.
we'll
And
be
the gas
thoughtful about it.
stations.
Sure, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I did want to say something because I get asked about the signage a lot in my position, working with businesses, and I absolutely agree. A nice aesthetic look would be great. However, keep in mind that some of the signs has to do with what's in the windows.
Mhm.
And going back to another job I used to have, there was a man that made posters before we had all this quick printing, digital printing. And every poster he ever made looked exactly the same, and he would put them up in people's windows or in a nightclub or in a restaurant so you could see the special. So with that being said, our ordinances really restrict what can be in the window. Maybe some of these places, instead of a feather sign, if we allowed them to have a consistent sign in the window that was the exact, like, same colors or something, a certain size for consistency, maybe that would appease them, because you can sometimes see the window, or even though we've restricted LED, just a second LED that says what you have, not scrolling, but that you do have, you know, an ATM inside, or you do have this other item too.
Right.
Some other way to do it without it being what you said, all over.
Yeah, Lisa works, I mean, she talks to every business owner when it comes to getting business license, certificate of occupancy, so they definitely voice their concerns to her. She definitely, just like Bruce, has been hearing from the business owners what they would like to see, but it's always a difficult balance between what the master plan and what the vision of the community and the business owners. It's not easy.
Sure. Any other discussion? All right, let's move along to agenda item 8F, our public hearing for the solar battery system ordinance revisions. Mr. Kennedy, if you'd like to briefly walk us into this, and then I'll open the public hearing.
Sure, thank you. So this is just a continuation from last month's discussion. We received some inquiries from residents about our solar energy systems ordinance. Specifically, it was to section 5.17.3 and 5.17.4. And so what we did was presented, my apologies, some amendments to you for discussion. We had those discussions last month. We made the amendments accordingly, and now we're ready to discuss and vote on them today. I do want to point out one of the biggest points of discussion that came out of last month was for battery energy storage systems, that we add not just basements for restrictions, but that we also add crawl spaces. Those were added to the amendment.
Nice.
Additionally, just want to reiterate for everyone, there is an amendment, there are two different amendments to vote for. One for 5.17.3, and then there's two for, it's an either-or situation. 5.17.4, which is a consolidation of the ordinance of 5.17, or it's a complete rewrite of redefining what a phrase not feasible was in the ordinance. That is for you to decide. 5.17.3.6 is its own thing. The other two, though, are an either-or. It's a kind of a choose-your-own-adventure type of ordinance discussion, so.
Thank you. Two things before I open the public hearing. I I want to make sure I'm clear on the motions or the suggested motions.
Yes.
Are we actually motioning to approve these, or we're motioning to recommend to council that they'll approve?
I may have put in to approve, but it is recommended council.
Okay. Keep that feather in your cap if
Yep.
you're coming up with a motion. The second point is, not all of us were present at our last meeting, but I do think we were mostly settled on a suggestion to recommend Amendment 1 and Amendment 3. So just keep that in mind. But I would like to open the public hearing, so if any members of the public are here to comment on our solar and battery system ordinance revisions, just like public comment, you'll have 3 minutes at the microphone to do that. Seeing no public comment, I will close the public hearing. And is there any other discussion before I seek a motion to recommend to council Amendment 1 and Amendment
It would be amendment.
2B,
Yes.
which is where we settled at our last discussion?
Well, I was counting on my laptop to be my text. and
Okay.
It's not working.
Uh-oh.
But I'm for anything that says, don't put it in the basement, don't put it in the crawl space. I'm not so happy about people having to create another structure in their backyard for this. I do think we're moving in a direction where transitioning away from lithium-ion batteries to lithium iron phosphate, which are less vulnerable to fire. And as long as people are informed about how to make how to avoid unreasonable decisions. It sounds like the inside of an exterior wall of a garage should be permitted.
Yeah.
So that's what I want. That's what my notes say. But my notes say that I would get that with the last amendment. And maybe I don't understand that.
I do think you would get that based on the last amendment.
You would.
Because 4A indicates that a BESS can be located outdoors in a rear yard, inside an approved accessory structure, or inside an attached garage.
An exterior wall.
It doesn't go into that level of
But a
specificity.
motion could be made to add that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, if you want a motion, I'll move that.
So I would like to, before we continue, I would like to say, following our last city council planning commission meeting, I did go and speak with members with the local electricians union. They did agree with your assessment, Mr. Nordmo, that the way that the technology is moving right now, more and more of these systems can be used in a garage. Exterior wall, that's where they recommend as well. So there are professionals who do agree with your assessment in the field.
Another quick point, did we ever, and I don't know if that was a point of contention, were we looking at duality of these battery energy storage systems? Meaning the system would be collected from the vehicle as well as the vehicle would get powered from the system.
We discussed it, but I don't believe we came to a conclusion as to what we wanted out of it, if I remember that discussion correctly.
And whether or not that would be considered, if that was a safety
Correct.
concern.
Well, may I comment? My understanding is that some of the later electrical vehicles are made to be able to power the house in a power outage. That would be, they would probably be plugged in the same way that they're plugged in for charging. But I'm not familiar with that. And of course, when they're charging, it's indifferent to where the power is coming from. But people aren't, in a power outage, people are going to save the power in their household battery, and they're gonna charge their car somewhere else because the main thing is to keep the house going.
No more questions.
I say this not having a battery and not planning on getting one, but I thought about it a lot, given the investment I have with solar and chargeable cars.
Any other
So-
questions or discussion?
We'd just be moving to add the exterior part to it?
No, that part
Or that's
is,
in it
that's
already?
in the ordinance, yeah. It's just,
Okay.
it was, just wasn't part of the suggested motion, that's all.
Okay.
But the
I see.
ordinance would limit, if they're installed on the interior of a garage, that it has to be an exterior wall.
Okay.
And then these, just to remind everybody that these are applicable only to the permanently installed battery energy storage systems. So these wouldn't be applicable to electric vehicles. These regulations wouldn't be applicable to electric vehicles or portable generators or portable battery.
Yeah, I believe last month we determined that it was any system that's permanently installed into the home would be under this ordinance.
Okay, again, I'm sorry. That being the case, that's where I think it came up, or I brought it up, that some of those generators can be permanently affixed in the home and in the basement. And I think that's what you're saying, that this is gonna eliminate.
It would not be permitted.
Okay, all right.
So, at the bottom of page 88, Mr. Kennedy has been kind to provide us some suggested motions. It sounds like we're mostly in agreement on Amendment 1 and Amendment 2B. The only caveat being we're not approving these. We are suggesting to council to approve these, recommending to council to approve these. I'll seek a motion unless there's further discussion.
I move to recommend the council amendment to section 5.17.3, general provisions, adding subsection 6, applicability of battery energy storage systems, BESS regulations.
Should we do-
Second.
Where does that address the permissibility of having it in the garage on an exterior wall?
That would be Amendment 2B.
Yes,
So we'll take that up separately?
No, I would do it as part of one motion, because it's,
Okay. So you'll have to continue your motion to include Amendment 2B.
In addition, I recommend the council to amend the section 5.17.4 permitted systems, consolidating subsections 4, 5, and 6 into one subsection, which includes the location of the exterior wall for the BESS system. Does that work?
Is that good?
Support.
Support.
All right, the motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the recommendation goes to council. I'm sorry. Commissioner Robinson seconded. Before we move on.
No, I
I'm
made the
sorry.
motion.
Oh,
Abraham.
Thank you. I would like to say before we move on to AG, what we just did was the result of public input. I'll omit his last name for privacy, but Rob, thank you for being careful and considerate of the ordinance we recommended to council and they ultimately passed several months ago. It's really by way of public input that we hone and refine these things to the best they can be. So in the spirit of that, I'd like to move on to another thing we're seeking public input on to refine and perfect. 8's new business G master plan update, housing goals and types discussion. We have from Giffords Webster with us Hannah and Jill, and I will let either or both of you take it away.
Hannah's just taken a moment to get her ClickShare running, which will just take a second. The way we have this presentation structured, Hannah's going to go through some of the data about housing in the city, and sprinkled throughout there will be questions. And so Planning Commission and the members of the public that are here are encouraged, if anybody is watching at home and they want to participate, they are able to do that. To do it, we use, I know, I'm gonna just pick up your phone. We use an app called Menti, and so Hannah will have a slide that'll show how to get on that. So you just go to your browser and hit go menti.com, MENTI.com, and when she's up and running, we'll show you what the code is, and then people will be able to participate. So hopefully that will work. And,
Yeah.
and then we'll go from there. It was our idea that we would do potentially a breakout session after the presentation. Given that this part will probably go 20-ish, maybe 30 minutes, that might not be practical tonight because it's getting late. But we do have public comment, as you added, which is great. There's a potential, and this will be up to the Planning Commission, we could bump the breakout to the study session next month, if you would like to do it that way. But I was just thinking ahead to that might be a little late to be having great ideas.
In addition to your concerns about timing, we did receive legal recommendation not to leave this room during the formal planning commission session.
Just
So-
because that's how
No,
it
I
was
know.
advertised, was for.
Yeah, I
Sure.
get it.
So
So that might work out. Then we'll just maybe bump that part to the study session for next.
study session might be a better space for
It
that.
is. Good. All right, here we go.
All right, so yeah, we just want to start by first of all thanking everyone that is here right now and you know, has stayed through to this point. We know with everything else going on, it's not easy to take time out of your night, and this is a really important process, and we do want you to know that your input and presence is incredibly valued. So like Jill explained, part of this presentation will be interactive through phones, but there will also be many opportunities to, you know, give your feedback and participate in other ways if you don't have a phone with you. So this is the QR code to scan, and this will be up multiple times through the presentation, but if you want to go ahead and scan it now, this will be the code to use through the presentation. But again, it'll be up throughout the presentation. Yes, and we do invite the public and anybody who may be watching this from afar to participate.
Hannah, if I could clarify, this is a tool we can use to actively participate in this session.
Yes.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
if you're holding a smartphone and you want to participate in this way, I'd encourage you to open this QR code now.
Yes.
Can they do that? Sorry, but as a point of order, can they participate anonymously on the thing while they're doing it?
No, this body shouldn't be participating
Okay.
on their cell phone. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, and this will be up again, but if anybody has any issues connecting or needs me to flip back or pause, please let me know. So just to get started here, I wanted to briefly go over the timeline of where we've been. I know if you were in the last study session, you just saw this, but for those who weren't, we have essentially just now completed the visioning phase of the master plan update, and that was just initial contact with city staff, with commissioners. We heard from the public about how this process should go, and I think the overwhelming feedback we heard is that there should be a lot of engagement and people should be able to connect in a variety of ways. So that's where we are right now. We are at our first focus topic for February, and that's housing. And directly after that, next month, we will kick off transportation, followed by economic development and parks and recreation. And all of these things will be followed by an open house sometime in June that'll be more of an open format where people can walk around and come in at their leisure and stop at different stations related to these topics. But one thing that we do want to know is feedback on the individual topics isn't limited to just the month that we're focusing on it. All of our communication channels will be open this whole time, and we do encourage everyone and anyone to give their input. If you didn't think of something now, but you thought of it later, it's never too late. You know, this is a pretty open process. So then just kind of an overview of how we want this presentation to go. We're going to start by just touching on the previous master plan, why we're here, why we're doing this housing module with you tonight, and then the housing presentation itself will include existing conditions, which will be just kind of that data piece of what's going on in Lathrup right now, and then we'll end with a more interactive discussion on housing topics and potential scenarios, if you will. So that being said, your previous goal on housing in neighborhoods in the 2021 master plan stated that the goal was to have attractive, safe, quiet, and well-maintained neighborhoods, a diversified range of housing for people of all ages and abilities, and active neighborhoods that promote community connectedness. And I know that we've presented on this goal before, but where we really want to focus in for this meeting is on these objectives, which are a little bit more directed points of the goal. They're a little closer to the action items, what you want to accomplish. And the objectives from your previous plan were to encourage maintenance of and reinvestment in existing neighborhoods, ensure that infill redeveloped residential properties are compatible with the surrounding area and adjacent parcels, provide a diverse range of housing options that meet the affordability, maintenance, and lifestyle needs of current and future residents, and support neighborhoods by improving walkability and access to goods and services. So these are the 4 objectives that you have right now in your plan for housing, and that's what's being used to guide policy on the matter. So part of this process is determining, are these objectives still relevant? Do they need to be changed? Have some maybe already been completed, or maybe we already have a avenue for completing them. So with this, we have kind of a way that we want to interact with the public here on these objectives. If you'll scan this barcode, we want to know, how do you feel about these objectives? Do you think that they're still relevant today and you can rank all of them? You know, whether you strongly agree, strongly disagree, or maybe you're in the middle, like it's not as important, but still should be considered. So yeah, we'll just give some time here for people to read these over and participate.
And you'll see when and if people
Yeah.
do participate, that it'll populate on the screen. So you'll be able to
Yes.
see what's going on. Does it say in the corner how many people are on?
Yes, it does. So yeah, right now we have 10 active participants.
And we have maybe?
Take your time. So there we go, we've got some answers now. Hopefully this helps lighten up the presentation. I know it's a little late.
I do have this pulled up. I'm not doing it, but I have it pulled up so I can
Okay.
see it. Essentially, the crowd is being asked to rank these objectives on a strongly agree to strongly disagree continuum, and we're seeing that results of that here.
And we might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. We might have a couple people participating remotely.
Online.
Yeah,
Mm.
which is
Yeah.
really cool.
And if there are people participating remotely, thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, feel free to, keep participating.
How many are participating?
Right now we have 10 online. So, and we've, yeah.
Can you go back to that screen so we can scan it one more time?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're all set, so that's.
Yep, yeah. And if you need me to do it again throughout the process, please feel free to ask. And so I think part of this is a good way to generate conversation, and at next month's study session, we can talk more about all of these results and what they mean for policy going forward. And Mentimeter also for the participants, it should allow you to, I believe, scroll back to previous questions if you feel that you missed something, and it'll stay open through the presentation. But it looks like most of these objectives so far are, everybody agrees and thinks that they're important for the most part, but with maintenance and reinvestment just slightly going ahead of the others. All right. So with that, so kind of just a little icebreaker into what we're doing, I want to jump into existing conditions. And,
We got some parts.
oh yeah, we did get some parts in the last one. And I just want to preface this all by saying that a majority of this data that I'm going to present on tonight is from the U.S. Census American Community Survey, and it is from the most recent 5-year estimates, which is 2023. It's typical that they lag around 2 years behind because it just takes that much time to go out and collect this data and compile it and make it available. But it is a very rigorous data set, but it is not perfect, and I recognize that. So going forward, just keep that in mind. So there's generally 3 components of housing data that we think about, and that's going to be the physical structure of the homes, the people and households that live inside those homes, and then cost and affordability. That's not comprehensive, but that's kind of a way you can categorize it. So then sort of starting with that physical structure of housing, Lathrup Village has an estimated 1,587 housing units, and almost all of those housing units are occupied. That's a good thing. There's a very low vacancy rate. And most of those housing units are 1-unit detached, otherwise known as single-family homes. That's everything in that pink bar there. And I think that that's not very surprising considering that the city was designed around single-family neighborhoods during the Garden City movement. But a chunk of them are still occupied by 1-unit attached buildings, which may look like attached condos or townhomes. They're typically owned buildings, and then 3 or 4 units. So going to the next slide, when we look at housing by number of units again, this is an area comparison. So we've pulled data for not just Lathrup Village, but the state overall, as well as the county, and then 8 other local comparison points. So what you're looking at is essentially Lathrup Village for all of these will always be on top, followed by the state and the county, and then you're kind of seeing all the bar graphs compared. So Lathrup Village really, it's comparable to the area in terms of how much single-family housing it has. It has a little more than the state and county overall, but it's comparable to like Berkeley, Huntington Woods, Pleasant Ridge, and some of the other similar areas. And please, if anybody has any questions on any of these slides, feel free to stop me and ask. Just want to be as clear as possible. Continuing on the physical structure of your homes, most of the homes in Lathrup Village were built prior to 1970, with a good chunk of them being built from 1950 to 1959. And so really you're kind of seeing at this point, most of the housing stock is entering a cycle and a period where it's going to need to look at remodeling, increased maintenance, and that's going to be a factor for not only existing residents, but people looking to purchase homes in the area. And looking at Lathrup Village housing by the number of bedrooms, most of the homes in the community are 3 or 4 bedroom homes. There's actually no 1-bedrooms reported in the census, and then a few 2 bedrooms. I think what's interesting is when you look at this by area comparison, so all of that green and blue color, if you will, are 1-bedroom options, and Lathrup Village has less available, but again, I think that's rooted in the way the city was designed. It's not necessarily good or bad, it's just what the data is saying. And there's also less two-bedroom options available. So most of that housing stock is gonna cater towards the 3 and 4 bedroom housing market. Now, kind of moving into the people part of this data, the reason that I put this slide right after bedrooms is because while most of your homes are 3 and 4 bedroom homes, but most of the households are 2-person households, which is everything in that lime green color. So, and on the left, we have the 2010 data compared to the right, which is the most current data, 2023, and there hasn't been a lot of change. We've seen a small increase in 3-person households, and that was mostly taken from the 1-person household, but still, most of your households are 2-person households right now. Continuing to look at people in Lathrup Village, we do have data about when they last reported moving in. Most of the current residents in the village moved in prior to 2017, and there really hasn't been a lot of action post-2018. So kind of going from older on the top to more recent on the bottom, you can kind of see most of those larger percentages are earlier than 2017, with a pretty good chunk before 2009 even. And when you compare this to the surrounding area, the most recent being on the left and the oldest being on the right, or people who have lived here the longest, Lathrup Village really has quite a bit less movement happening in the last 7 years since 2018, which is represented by that green and blue area. So what we're seeing here is a slowdown in the market, and that includes both residents who moved within the community and also residents who moved from outside communities. So that's including all movement.
May I ask a quick question about
Yeah.
this slide? And I realize you may not have the answer, but looking at a slide like this one, it's hard not to forget that a housing market collapsed in 2008. And my immediate suspicion is that a lot of houses turned over in Lathrup Village between 2010 and 2017, perhaps as a result of that. So that's a point of interest for me. It's also interesting to me that it appears to have affected Lathrup Village in some amount of disproportion to communities surrounding us. There's a hell of a lot wider green band on Lathrup Village than there is on Huntington Woods, for example. Do you have any insight as to why that green band is so large for us?
So I think what you said about the housing market crash is probably accurate and a piece of this and why we saw an increased amount of movement from that 2010 to 2017 era, right? It was kind of after all these homes were going back up on market. But as far as why it has disproportionately affected Lathrup Village?
I might speculate that, and if you look at Huntington Woods, it's fairly similar, Pleasant Ridge, fairly similar, that with an aging population, that for someone to sell their home and move into a new home, their taxes are gonna go up significantly. And so where are people gonna go? So it may be that people are rooted here, they're staying here, they're happy, they're not going. Whereas in some of the other areas like Berkeley, you might see a little bit more of that as people with families are moving in. Maybe there's a little bit more transition there, but that could be some of what we're seeing.
So like a kind of a lack of new people moving in potentially.
Right, because the people who've lived here longer are aging here and staying.
Will there be a slide about the age of our homes?
Yes.
Okay. I'm also curious perhaps if there are fewer people moving into Lathrup Village in recent years because there frankly is no development of new housing options in Lathrup Village. And perhaps the yellow and turquoise or light blue, whatever you call that color on the far left, could be the result of simply development in those cities that we simply don't see here.
And I think that's possible as well, you know, with Lathrup Village being built out essentially in the neighborhoods, you might be seeing that compared to some of the other communities in the area. There's just not as much of that action happening. And just to clarify on your question, were you referring to the age of the homes themselves?
Yes.
Yes, and I think actually, maybe I glossed over it a little bit quickly, but yeah, so most of the homes were built pre-1970, with a good chunk of them being built from 1950 to 1959. And I think, because that's really like a 30% of the housing stock built in that decade.
Sure.
So I think my biggest point there would be that you're entering a cycle where maintenance and renovation is a serious consideration for not just existing residents, but also people looking to buy homes in the community, just because of the nature. And many of the homes are historic, and I think that that's part of the charm, if you will, of, you know, wanting to move in and renovate those historic homes, but it is a consideration.
Thank you for ticking back to that. That wasn't you glossing over, that was me not looking up. My second takeaway from this, in addition to the advanced age of so much of our housing stock, is a big fat zero built from 2020 or later, and a whopping 1.2% from 2010 to 2019. So of our entire housing stock in the last 16 years, only 1.2% of it is within that age bracket.
That is correct, based on the most recent census data. Now, again, it does lag a little bit behind, so,
Sure.
you know, there could have been something built in the last few months that's not reflected, but effectively, yes, that is the trend.
And isn't it also true that the housing demand on the part of young families would be for the minimal footprint, because the price of housing relative to income has gone up so much, and they need the 1 or 2 bedroom option in order to get into housing, and we don't offer that.
So yes, Lathrup Village does have very little available in terms of, well, 0% reported 1-bedroom housing, but less 2-bedroom housing than even the neighboring communities and the county overall. And I'll actually.
And I'd just like to make the point
Yeah.
that addresses not only the issue of young families, but also seniors wishing to downsize.
Yes, that could definitely be true.
Downsize from a 4-bedroom to 3-bedroom, but you know, beyond that, they don't have options here.
Yeah, and I will say to your point about affordability being a factor, and I'll get into that as well. But I think, yeah, you know, you could be seeing it's impacted by affordability, it's impacted by need or desire for layouts. But the fact of the matter is, you are correct, and there is not that much 2-bedroom housing available. So then. And also to that point, yes, so there's, most of the homes are 2-person homes. And most people moved in prior to 2017. We haven't seen a lot of movement between homes or from outside areas after that. In that comparison. And so this is, I think this is a great segue to your question. The last piece of this is cost and affordability. So, right, we've talked a little bit about housing structure. We've talked a little bit about the people who are moving between homes. And I want to start by just talking about affordable housing and what that means to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So when we're talking about affordable housing for, you know, things like grants or building, or people are saying that, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development defines this as housing that costs no more than 30% of a household's gross income, including utilities. So anybody spending more than 30% of their income on housing is generally considered cost burdened. So when I'm referring to cost burdened, that's the definition that I'm using. And anybody spending more than 35% is considered severely cost burdened. Now, in comparison, some of you may have heard the term attainable housing, and they are Similar concepts, but two different things, really. Housing is considered attainable if it is affordable to those making between 80 to 100% of an area's median family income. So you may have heard, we have to strive for attainable housing. That's kind of the range that they're talking about, and it is a different definition than affordable. We did pull this data for the most recent 2025 reported median family income for Oakland County was $101,000 a year, and that's median family income, so that's different than median household income. And by that way of figuring, the attainable range for a family of 4 for housing costs is between around $2,000 to $3,000 per month. And for a family of 2, which most of your households in Lathrup Village are 2-person households, that cost would be between $1,600 and $2,300 roughly per month to look at attainable housing. So that's just kind of putting numbers on the page for what that would look like based on Oakland County numbers. And generally they're reported either by metropolitan area or as far down as the county. So keep that in mind. So to start for that, looking at median home values in Lathrup Village, they're sitting around $270,900. Again, this does lag a little bit behind current market conditions. This was from 2023. And most of your homes sit in that $200,000 to $300,000 range, or a few more in the $300,000 to $400,000 range. And that's comprises, around 80% of the homes in Lathrup Village. So that's really the market that you're looking at.
Quick question.
Yeah.
The homes themselves, and to Commissioner Normo's point, when it comes to the more seasoned residents, how many? What's the makeup of the homes? Meaning ranch style versus tri-level versus, multi-level kind of, or
Yes.
split level and multi-level homes.
Yes. So I actually do not have a slide on that data for today, but we do have that data reported from the city, and I can absolutely make it available to those who are interested in more of the breakdown by style of homes. And I think, we could definitely have that included for the study session next month, so thank you. So then when we look at home value, compared to the area overall, and obviously there's a lot of different factors and things going into this. It's not, a linear process by any means, the housing market, but Lathrup Village, what it boils down to, really has probably less homes under that 200,000 mark than some of the surrounding area. And I think that that's, the point to consider here, especially if you kind of look at, it's a little hard to see from way up there, but the white bar is effectively that $200,000 range. You can see that's pretty big compared to some of the surrounding area, and but maybe comparable to Berkeley. But yeah, so that's kind of your overall regional comparison for value. Looking at renters versus owners. Owner is in pink here and renter is in blue. Most of Lathrup Village is owner occupied, 92% actually of housing units are owner occupied. Again, I don't think, that's kind of in the way the city was designed, but it is a little bit more than the state and county overall. But you see some of your counterparts like Berkeley, Huntington Woods, Pleasant Ridge, they all have similar rates of ownership, but very, there's still 10% of the population still rent here though, so, still 1 in 10 people. And this is kind of going back to that component of affordability, the Department of Housing and Urban Development's definition of being 30% or more of your spending on housing is considered burdened. So that's where you kind of see this break in the pink and the blue. The pink is representing the percentage of your households that are considered cost burdened. And right now, for owner occupied households, that's around almost 30%. And more people who are burdened are considered severely burdened even. So that's 20%. The median monthly owner cost in Lathrup Village is around $1,800 a month. So again, that's based on income and based on their reported housing costs, and these housing costs do include utilities, insurance, any fees. So it's not just the mortgage piece to that. Compared to the surrounding area, Lathrup Village actually has a higher ownership burden than the state and the county and the area overall. As far as,
Excuse me.
yes,
Could you interpret the colors a little bit? Well, if I turned around, I guess I could do it, but.
no, that's okay. Thank you. So, sort of going back to the previous slide, they all kind of use the same color scheme, with pink being that burdened representation
Yes,
and
yes.
blue being the non-burdened and kind of,
So you're saying that over 45% are housing burdened in Lathrup Village compared to 60% in Berkeley,
so the,
Huntington Woods? No,
pink
this-
is
the,
I'm reading
the
it
pink
wrong.
is the burdened, the pink, so the one on the right side.
Oh, I'm looking at the
yeah.
wrong end.
Yeah, no, you're okay. Thank you for asking. So around 30% of owners with a mortgage are burdened, or would be considered burdened. You'll find that the census does split up groups by people who have a mortgage and people who don't,
Okay.
because that's sort of the main factor in housing cost. So I did include it here, but you can see for owners without a mortgage, that burden rate is very low. So you're looking at people who still have a mortgage out on their home primarily as the burdened population, but obviously there's still 3% here. And median monthly owner costs without a mortgage are $850. So with a mortgage it was like $1,800, without it's like $800. So then kind of moving into your renter population, because again, that's still around 10% of the population. The median gross rent in Lathrup Village is around $1,500 a month as of 2023. We all know that number could probably be higher with inflation over the last 2 years, but around 15% of renters are burdened. So again, that's that pink color. So most people are sitting okay. And when you compare this to the surrounding area, again, Lathrup Village at the top, in pink, it's actually a lower percentage of rental burden than we would expect to see in general and in the state and county and areas overall. Part of the reason for this could just be that there's not many rentals here, so it could be worth looking into, what are the kinds of rentals, how much do they cost, who's living in them, to determine like why you're not seeing as much of a burden, but that's just what the data is showing. So then I'm actually going to hand it over to Jill, and we're going to jump into the rest of the housing discussion piece and have some more of those interactive mentees, so everybody can get their phones back out.
Thank you. So I have to slide it over because I didn't put my glasses on.
Yeah, it's okay.
So we thought it would be helpful to consider some planning best practices. So this doesn't mean necessarily that everything that is being talked about in terms of housing across the state is applicable here, but we wanted just to raise the awareness as for your education as planning commissioners. Housing is a key issue facing not only the state of Michigan, but states all around the country. So everybody is working on these kinds of strategies. Michigan has a statewide housing plan that was prepared a couple years ago, where it was identified that the state needs 75,000 new or rehabilitated housing units added in the next 5 years, with at least 39,000 of those affordable rental units and 21,500 as market rate units. That is, again, it's on a statewide basis. That doesn't mean we need to provide for everybody here. but just being aware that this is a pressing issue in the state. The Michigan Association of Planning, which is the professional organization for not only professional practicing planners like ourselves, but also for planning commissioners like yourselves. A couple of years ago, now probably 3 years ago, the Michigan Association of Planning prepared the zoning reform toolkit, specifically targeted at creating strategies, helping communities create strategies for housing, adding housing, and noting that modifying local regulations to increase housing supply and choice is one way to improve livability and ensure all people in Michigan have a place to call home. And then the Michigan Municipal League, which is another association for primarily our cities and villages in the state of Michigan. A lot of our elected officials and administrators and staff belong to the Michigan Municipal League. Michigan Municipal League created a pattern book of homes, so as a way to encourage new housing types across the state, preparing blueprints of housing types that could just be used in a community. Someone could take that and get a building permit and go ahead, trying to cut down some of the barriers to housing. Thank you. Oh, all right. So get your Menti out. Hopefully it should still be going.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Does it continue if we stay on the same?
It should, yeah.
It should.
Yeah.
It should have an arrow kind of on the
Yeah.
bottom. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you for asking.
All right.
And it'll stay
should.
there too.
Yeah, so you should see the next prompt. In 1 or 2 words, how would you define or describe your neighborhood in Lathrup Village? We have 12 people now.
I know. And this is going to generate a word cloud just for, so you can get a sense of why it's 1 or 2 words. And I believe it'll let you submit more than once if, you have 2 or 3 things that you'd like to contribute.
Are those all the responses?
Yep, so we're seeing them come
cool.
in live.
Yeah. And because probably more than one person said beautiful, that's why that word got big.
Mhm.
And thank you everyone for participating.
Right, animal friendly.
All right, well, that may be all we're gonna have.
Yeah, we have 6 of 12.
Yeah, we'll give you
Well-
1 more minute. Oh. All right.
And it should stay open
Yeah.
too, so.
Okay, now this one, we're asking people to give some consideration to their priorities for housing in the city. So the priority list might includes affordability, age friendliness, which might mean the ability for people of all ages to be able to live safely and comfortably in their home. Neighborhood infrastructure, so sidewalks, pathways, utilities, streets. Housing conditions, so the condition of the homes themselves. Are they in good repair? Are the roofs maintained? Are the exteriors well maintained? Landscaping. Convenient access to goods, services, employment, and amenities. Next time we'll talk about, our program will be on transportation, and we'll be talking a little bit about the link between your location of housing and your location of your goods and services and other things that you need in your community, and the relationship between your housing costs and the costs that we have for transportation. Diversity of housing types, I think we've seen what that is and what that might mean, and then housing conditions. Oh wait, those were moved around. They got moved around. What was the one I
Yeah,
didn't
I'm
read?
sorry. Yeah, because they're
No, I think I
ranking,
got 'em
they're
all. They
ranking them,
moved-
so
they
it's
moved while I was
it's
reading.
flipping based on.
All
the
right, I
rank.
think I read them all.
And so we're seeing answers come in.
I know, it's cool.
I think we definitely have some people who are not here as well.
Yeah, yeah, because there's only quite,
Yeah.
are you?
So they're just responding.
No, I didn't think
I know, but
three,
they're
four.
saying the
12,
word is,
so
wording is
yeah.
so small.
Oh, I
It's so
know.
far.
Yeah.
While we're sitting in this chair in the
We'll
middle
give
of
a
it.
little bit more
Yeah.
time for this one. I know there's more to read here and more to think about.
How is it presented, like, what does like the interface look like for the people participating?
So it's a drag and drop ranking, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're welcome to, you can
They're just
scan
being
it and
asked
just.
to-
You can look
not
at it
submit
and
it.
just,
Give it a look.
yeah.
Yeah.
That might be a little too tempting for me.
There's nothing that, it's just during the meeting, any discussions need to be
Yeah.
verbal. They can't be done online. So it's not saying that you can't, on your own time, log in and utilize this, but during the meeting, we shouldn't have any activity taking place on the phone that's not verbalized.
All right, well, that looks good. So it looks like affordability, age friendliness, and neighborhood infrastructure are our top three. This is another question, kind of almost a follow-up, whether residents have the means and opportunity to continue to live here as they age. So thinking about if housing is attainable, accessible, and safe for older residents. And this is a word cloud? Or yes?
This one's just open.
Open-ended.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have an opinion, you can answer more than yes or no. You can say, you can add some specifics.
multiple responses.
Sure.
But if you want to keep it short, you're welcome to do so.
Really interesting comments. We'll give one more minute for this, but as Hannah said, this will be available so people can still participate in it for another, what's the time on it, like a day or two?
Yeah, around a day. And I would like to point out that this particular question to the housing survey has a very similar question and avenue of input if you want to, take more time and dive into it. But yeah, I mean, it looks like seeing a lot of interesting commentary.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, am I still going? Or are we-
Yeah, well,
Okay.
so then we're just gonna jump into.
Oh, we're still on best practices.
Yes, best practices and kind of just a final touch on different housing typologies because we've been talking about all these varieties and kind of what it means to be missing middle housing.
So missing middle housing is a term that was developed to recognize home types that did exist for a long time, but then went missing. As we continued to build outward from our cities with detached single-family homes, there really was not much between that and apartment buildings. And so some of the things that we might have seen in an older developed city include duplex units or triplexes or quadplexes, cottage courts, townhomes, and it's sort of this continuum of housing. And they can be rentals, they can be owner occupied, but they are not only housing types in terms of styles, but they also can fit a middle price range in a lot of cases too. So many communities have found that they have been missing these housing types and tried to figure out ways in which they may be added. So that was something that came up in our study session, was thinking about the different housing types that we might need here and places where they might be appropriate. So some communities are looking at their single-family standards where they're relaxing some of their dimensional requirements. I want to preface, well, it's too late for me to preface but let me add that there is a recognition and an understanding of the historic nature and charm of these communities, of your neighborhoods, excuse me. It's not just about the house itself, but it is also about the space around the homes that makes up the character of the neighborhoods. So this is just being a placeholder here for some options that might be worth exploring in some areas of the city, not necessarily everywhere.
We aren't proposing anything, we're
Right.
just sharing
Right.
opportunities or
Yes.
possibilities.
Again, the Michigan Municipal League's pattern book for homes shows a couple of these missing middle typologies. These might be, though, places that maybe not necessarily in the neighborhoods as they exist, but maybe some of the corridor areas that we were talking about earlier. Cottage courts, this may be something that we don't necessarily have room for. But there could be areas in the last master plan. There was a concept for that at the old House in the Wood site that has since, gone a different track. But there is an idea for a cottage court where it's smaller homes. Usually they're centered around some sort of a little neighborhood amenity like a picnic area or a playground or something like that. And it's a way to squeeze in some more homes in a smaller area. And then, again, more of the pattern book homes, looking at smaller building widths, smaller size homes with a smaller footprint altogether. And then looking at live works and duplexes and fourplexes, which might even be considered a townhome. The idea, I think, with the duplex in particular that's shown those are homes that could look like single-family homes, but they're actually two housing units. So just again, for information and reference for what is happening in other communities.
And I will add just this particular example in Grand Rapids. I'm from that area, and I know a lot of the homes that are historic have even been converted into duplexes, and that's partially what you're seeing here. So they do maintain their historic character in some of those instances.
So the next question, which, if any, missing middle housing types are appropriate, or we could say may be appropriate in Lathrup Village? And it's fair to say, that if someone picked a duplex, for example, it doesn't necessarily mean that they want a duplex everywhere, but that they would be open to where those things might go if they're possible.
Excuse me, what is a cottage court?
The cottage court are the small footprint homes that tend to be clustered around a common amenity like a little playground or a picnic area or something like that.
We have 13 on now.
Oh,
We're gaining traction.
yeah, picked up another viewer.
I ask a question as people are voting.
Mhm.
I'm curious if you have any idea when the townhomes, row houses, duplexes, whatever we're calling them, along the service drive between Southfield Road and Greenfield are, as you're on the northbound of the service drive. Do you have any idea of when those were constructed?
The ones that have the empty space out in front, and
That's
then
right.
it's the two units that are perpendicular.
They stare into the freeway.
Around
Sometime before last.
2015, I think. 16, 17?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I think,
You're talking when you come right up off the Southfield Freeway, off of 696.
I'm talking along 696, west of Southfield Road, east of Greenfield Road, before you get to the credit union.
oh, Evergreen, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Evergreen,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Okay. that makes-
Oh, so between Southfield and Evergreen.
That's right.
Yes.
Those,
No, I don't.
those have been there for a long
long
time. a
Is it
very
fair
long
to
time.
assume they probably got there around the time of the freeway's completion? The late 80s, maybe?
Wow, maybe, but they.
Maybe.
We can
I
look
know
into it.
someone that actually lived in one.
Okay.
And I know this lady purchased, she's a resident in Lathrup, but she had purchased one of those condos, or her son did. And he lived in there, oh my God. Let's see. I know he was in there in the early 2000s.
We'll look it up.
Yeah.
We can find out. All right, great.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Looks like townhomes came in slightly ahead.
Yeah.
You're talking right next to the bank.
Another housing type that we did want to raise with you are the accessory dwelling units. So an accessory dwelling unit also might be called a granny flat, a granny cottage, a backyard cottage. They are housing units that exist on the same lot as a primary residence. So they can be more for flexible housing options that can blend in better with the character of the community, and they might hold an aging resident who either wants to live in the smaller unit or stay in their main house, but have another, like a caregiver or a younger family member, stay in one of the two dwellings. So these are just a variety of different kinds. The AARP has really a lot of resources on livable communities. And they've done a lot of research, and they've given a lot of guidance to communities looking to be age-friendly. So they are not, the things that they talk about in those aren't necessarily geared for older people, but really for people of all ages. They did a housing and community preference survey in 2021 and found the top considerations for creating an ADU were to provide housing for relatives or friends, housing for a loved one in need of care, have a space for guests, have a place for a caregiver to stay, increase the value of their home, feel safer by having someone living nearby, and earn extra income from renting to a tenant. So these were all some of the strategies that communities used when creating an accessory dwelling unit. So that is a very short summary of an ADU. And so just looking for just a quick feel from people of what they think about these and whether they should be permitted here in the city or not. And this obviously requires a lot more study, but it's just an gauging initial thoughts.
And you know, right now, a lot of the properties have a work shed out back. Like, my property has a work shed out back, and it's like, do we convert those into granny flats?
Housing
So to
over
speak.
the garage. You see that both in luxury homes, expanding that, and also other people, I mean, it could be for a student, or it could be a sort of a work area for one, kind of a, not a lab, but, you know, arts area, or study, or something like that.
Studio, yeah.
All right, a little bit of everything here in our responses, which is great and totally good. All right, moving on. Okay, so this is where we were gonna do our breakout session, but I think that we will not do that because we don't want to leave the room necessarily, and it's gotten late, especially for the folks, and many of you you've all been here since 6 o'clock, so I think we would propose to maybe do this portion at our study session in March. It gets us, it changes up our flow from what we talked about earlier in our study session, but I think it makes sense.
Sure, I think that would be okay.
Okay. So that concludes our presentation. So we're happy to answer any questions that the Planning Commission might have, and then we look forward to public comment when you're ready for that.
Sure, I do have a few questions before and I'm sure others may as well. I'm glad that we reviewed the previous set of objectives, but I would also like opportunity to maybe expand upon the existing objectives, or perhaps even include other objectives that may not have been relevant in 2021. So my notes on the matter were, and some of this is informed by my own brain, but some of this was informed by something like the graph we saw where all the words showed up and some got bigger when multiple people put them down, et cetera. I know a lot of people, including myself, value Lathrup Village for its peace and quiet, its serenity, its calm. I see words like historical bedroom community, serene, quiet neighborhoods, et cetera. So I do think that descriptive words like these have a place in the objectives, especially if this commission is recommending, for example, the adaptive reuse of underutilized office buildings and the business corridors. I would hope all of that could be accomplished while maintaining, preserving the peace and calm of the existing neighborhoods as they are. So I think the objectives are missing discussion of that. I also think the objectives are missing discussion of the historic and architectural integrity of Lathrup Village. So I'd like to see some more descriptive words to that effect. And also I think the objectives are missing, this actually isn't represented here, but I think you can glean it from a few of the responses, such as beautiful, is I think a lot of the reason why so many people are attracted to a Lathrup Village and stay in Lathrup Village is for its green spaces, its winding streets, its tree canopy, et cetera. So I like to see some incorporation of the preservation of peace and quiet, the preservation and commitment to green spaces, as well as the historic and architectural integrity of the community.
I would agree.
I would like to make a comment on looking at it from a different perspective. We moved here from Huntington Woods. As a 78-year-old person at that time, I was tired of my bungalow. I didn't like being squeezed in. I wanted some space, I wanted a ranch house, and I wanted a city with sidewalks. You'd be amazed if you shop for ranches, you quickly get into neighborhoods that have no sidewalks. We have the blessings of sidewalks, and we have the burden of the worst sidewalks I've seen in any suburb. They're below they don't drain, and they're broken up, and they're planted next to, they have trees planted next to them. But anyway, that was a preface to what I was going to say. Some of us need the 3-bedroom homes for all the stuff we've got, and the activities, the lifestyles of a retired person. That, you know, my wife does sewing, I do writing, we have a place for books. So there's a diversity issue there. Okay, here's my point though. We were laid out to be a very luxurious community where you park like vistas all over the place. And part of the price we pay is we have low density compared to, for example, Huntington Woods. We have, in the same space, we have 65% of the housing units. That means those 65% have to carry the burden of, the same burden of the sewage infrastructure and the street layouts and so on. We have blocks that are dense, and then we have blocks like the one next to me. It has 2 houses on it, and it has a huge, wide, empty lot, and Huntington Woods would be snapped up for $300,000 to build a big house on it. the owner says he can't sell it because it's not big enough to divide it. But in another city, it would be another house. So I look across the street, I have a big triangular piece of land with one house on it. And there's other spots on our street that are like that. I think we also need to grow the number of rooftops and the number of family living units just to be a healthy, viable community. And there are a lot of spots for that kind of growth, but through that missing middle type of housing. And I saw townhouses there, and I saw several people identifying one kind or another of that missing middle. We're moving in that direction with the apartments, but I think there's a lot of interest in, the 1 and 2 bedroom homes in the townhouse configuration or something like that. And that will help us, I would think. I'm not getting any comparison from anything presented of how it helps the city financially to have townhomes versus empty office space, townhomes versus parking lots. But those are some of the choices we have now. I took a walk, as I mentioned earlier, on Southfield today. The second block I came in, every building on it was vacant. It just struck home again. We have assumed a booming market for office space for dentists and lawyers and accountants. And so many of those places are vacant and not in demand. And there's an interest in loft housing, I think, maybe live workspace, but I'm afraid that it will become a bootleg market if we don't address it in a formal way. We want beautiful housing. We want housing that complements the single-family detached, not some bootleg conversion of office space on Southfield. And I'm not saying it's happened, but it's going to be a temptation if we don't address it. Sorry.
It sounds like you bring up, correct me if you disagree with my summary, 2 ideas to improve the density of Lathrup Village, to increase the population of Lathrup Village. I'm just summarizing what I'm taking away from what you're saying. I'm not making any suggestions myself. 1, how do you improve density within the neighborhoods, perhaps by allowing for new properties to be built on lots that are smaller than previously allowed to be built upon for that purpose. And secondly, reconsideration of some underutilized office and retail buildings along our commercial corridors for the purpose of residential dwelling. Okay. It's interesting you bring up Huntington Woods. I know you are a former resident of Huntington Woods, but Huntington Woods came up a lot over the course of many discussions Lathrup Village has been having as a community over the course of the last few years as it relates to Headley and property taxes and what we collect them for and what we're using to pay them for. So I brought up this data again because it was pertinent back then, and I think it's pertinent again today. Both Lathrup Village and Huntington Woods are approximately the exact same size geographically. As of the 2010s, how should I say this? As of the 2020 census, there were 4,088 people in Lathrup Village, and there were 6,388 people in Huntington Woods. Approximately 2,300 more in a city the same size as ours. But also interestingly, there were 2,381 households in Huntington Woods compared to 1,610 in Lathrup Village. Those numbers may not be perfect, but I do think they're representative of something you're speaking to, which is not only the density of our population, but the density of our housing within the geographic confines of the city. So,
and price-wise, we could not afford the house we wanted in Huntington Woods.
Sure.
We can afford it here. A ranch house on a nice lot would be 500,000.
Sure. Any other discussion? I'll say lastly, before I open for public comment, I would like to see the objectives, or I would suggest the subjectives also capture something to that extent, some type of thoughtful consideration of how we can perhaps expand the housing stock without compromising the neighborhoods and the historic and architectural integrity of the community. So, any other discussion among the panel? All right, seeing no further discussion up here, I would like to open this up for public comment. Again, you'll have 3 minutes at the podium. Please state your name and your street. And really, this public comment should be utilized for the topic of this housing goals and types discussion. So, by all means.
I can hardly get up after sitting for so long. Karen Harris, Cambridge Boulevard. I think I'm a bit confused because I thought that this whole housing thing was something we're going to be working on and what we want for the next master plan. But instead, we're going over all the other objectives and spending a lot of time with objectives from 5 years ago or whenever it was. So I guess I'm confused. I thought we were going forward, and it seemed like we were basing everything on what was decided in the past. I guess that's all I have to say, because I'm still confused.
That was a lot of ground to cover and a lot of things to talk about. I'm glad there's going to be more public discussion. I'll start off with saying that 10 people total, whatever you want to say, is not enough. And I think that's partially a reflection of current level of engagement. But I also think we got to just really find better ways to get the public out and involved. When you think about a breakout session after a planning commission meeting, that to me doesn't say great public turnout versus having a town hall type meeting where maybe there's breakout sessions for the public to have real discussions. I agree with one of your comments, which is you can put out the other things and say, do you agree with this? But that doesn't necessarily say that's what we want our objectives to be. And I'd like to, have a much more open conversation with the public on that. Just a few other things. I mean, we can talk about a few lots here and there and changing the density in neighborhoods, but really, when we talk about housing options for this city and whether we want to expand them, we're really talking about on Southfield, mostly on Southfield and 12 Mile maybe. Everything else is filled up. So, things like, oh, look at this kind of house, that's kind of irrelevant for most of us, unless you're talking about something that can be built on, say, Southfield Road or 12 Mile, like a townhouse, which I think is a really interesting way to address this. The other thing, though, that all communities aren't equal. I think you see that on the graphs, that we really are much more like Huntington Woods, we're much more like Pleasant Ridge. And at first that looks like, well, look how insular they are, or look how, unaffordable they are. But I don't look at Lathrup Village or any of these as standing alone. We are part of a much bigger Metro Detroit and, South Oakland County, north of Detroit, whatever, community of communities. And then when you look at that and, you say, well, we're right next to Oak Park. What kind of housing are they providing people? And then we're just south of Beverly Hills. What kind of housing is that? And do we fill a gap? And I saw on that graphs a number of places where we really fill a gap, where we are extraordinary in some sense. And you look at it and go, oh, we shouldn't be like that. Except if you look at the whole community, we're actually doing a service to the greater community of communities by providing a certain kind of thing that's unique to us and that provides opportunities for, certain families and couples and things like that. So I'm excited about this potential to have this conversation. I want it to be bigger, but I also want us to keep in mind, we don't have to solve all problems. We just have to be part of the overall solution for the county and the area.
Just for the record who that was.
Hey, John, would you mind just stating for the record your name?
I'm John Suzanis. I live on Rainbow Drive.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment. Thank you to Hannah and Jill for your presentation tonight, as well as your presentation at the study session. You've hung out with us for a long time, and we appreciate it. I would like to say, kind of as, oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to add something?
One more time, that March we'll be discussing transportation, April will be economic development, May will be park and rec, and then the open house will be in June. And also there's surveys online that can be filled out at any time.
Sure. To that end, about surveys, but also public comment we've heard tonight and discussion we've had tonight, I'm speaking for myself personally. I'm not interested in a version of the master plan update that is simply kind of a co-signed regurgitation of the one that happened in 2021. So I would like to see all of these inputs synthesized into a new version of goals and objectives, et cetera, that take into account the discussion tonight, the survey results that we receive, and future discussions we have. So hopefully we can keep that front of mind.
Yes, I have a question. Discussion of this Southfield Road and the image of Southfield Road, the aesthetics of the Southfield Road would be most fitting for the next meeting. We have a nature group in Lathrup Village that is willing to provide expert comment on the kinds of vegetation that would be best fit there. But to illustrate it, they would need the assistance of Giffords Webster in creating a CAD kind of expression of that vision. And I'm wondering if Giffords Webster can provide that, and perhaps between now and the next meeting even.
Well, we can talk after.
Thank you.
More specific on what you're looking for. Sure. I don't want to cut off your planning commissioner comments, but I do want to just circle back to your point about wanting to come up with a version of the plan that stands for today, the 2026 master plan. And this also goes back to Ms. Harris's comment too about why are we talking about old objectives. The city has had a very good planning history since 2009 of making sure that its master plan has been reviewed and updated every 5 years. So I think it's very helpful to understand the context and the previous planning efforts of the people who sat in those seats before you, so that you know what has been discussed. You don't need to reinvent the wheel every 5 years. And that's not to say that you can't reinvent the wheel. We're all for that. But that just to provide that history of where you've been as a community in your planning. That's why we start with the most recent plan and then say, well, how do we need to change it? Where do we go from here? So bear with us when we show you the things from previous planning efforts, and we will do our best to incorporate all of those things and provide you with information, text, pictures that reflect your conversation and the concerns of the community. So thank you for letting me just say that.
Any other general matters for discussion? I've got one quick one before we move on to the site development update and adjourn. I would like to mention very recently, former planning commissioner and Lathrup Village City Council member, Bruce Kopis, passed away. I had the honor of meeting him on 3 or 4 occasions. I can't say I know him well, but I know that he was a primary contributor to our city's success over the course of the last few decades and a valued neighbor and friend to many. So and I think the commission would agree with me, condolences and thoughts go out to his friends, family, and neighbors, of course. So thank you, Bruce. Moving on to agenda item 10A, site development update.
Thank you, Hannah and Jill. That's a great conversation. So we're going to wrap this up quickly so that we can all get going. So there was a business removed from the list proudly. The property where Holy Burger is no longer on the list. It has been built out. I'm not going to pull it up on the screen just so we can get through this in a more timely manner. All right, so we got across the street at 27411 Southfield Road, Jay Bird's Bar and Grill. They've received administrative approval to install a canopy structure over the existing paved patio area. They are currently working with our building official through McKenna on their building permit to finalize the actual architectural renderings to get their building permit. At 26600 Southfield Road, just south of 696, Holbrook Auto Parts. The business license has been issued, business is now open, and they're awaiting installation of their approved wall sign. At 27651 Southfield Road, across the street, Middle Eats. They received approval during our November 18, 2025 meeting to expand their dining area. They are currently working with our building official to receive their building permit. 27700 Southfield Road, to the north of us, the former school site, received site plan extension of 12 months at our meeting tonight. And also we received an update that they are in good favor with MISTA, so fingers crossed they get their funding and we can find that out hopefully before the end of Q2, but we're at the behest of the state. And then finally tonight at 28919 Southfield Road, you guys approved contingent upon ZBA approval of their variance site plan for a new cafe at, that will operate serving coffee, tea, and pastries. And that's all I got tonight for you guys. Thank you all very much for your time and participation in your due diligence tonight. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments for Austin's updates?
We were at the Holy Burgers on Sunday, and it was great. We're going
Yeah.
back.
They really do have good food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice guys too, the owners.
Yeah,
Prices,
I was there on Saturday, and I share your review. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. A lot of you have been here for many hours, so we appreciate your participation. And good luck, Mr. Mohammed, at the Zoning Board of Appeals on Monday. All right. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
That makes the motion. Support.
The motion's been made by Commissioner Robinson and supported by Commissioner Abraham. Hearing the motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.